We have a few goals for our webinar today, just so you know what you are in for. We would like you to gain a foundational knowledge of how the PEI Watershed Alliance mobilizes community-level restoration across the island, what a nature-first adaptation approach really means, the pillars of island restoration, and the importance of biodiversity. And now, without further ado, I would like to hand it over to Heather Laiskonis, the Executive Director of the PEI Watershed Alliance. Heather, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Madison, and thanks for everybody who has decided to spend their lunch hour with me. As said, I'm Heather Laiskonis. I'm coming in from Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island, or Apiquet. And our presentation outlines how community-based watershed management, standardized monitoring, coordinated funding delivery are being used to operationalize nature-based adaptation across Prince Edward Island. And I do have to apologize. This is the very first time that I'm giving this presentation through the climate change lens or climate adaptation lens. And if you haven't ever done that with your work, I highly, highly recommend it. It's been very eye-opening, so I'm very much looking forward to sharing this with you. But I'll take you through a little bit of who we are, and there's our cute little island with 25 watershed groups. So the Alliance functions as the coordinating body for 25 independent watershed groups. Together, these groups manage the majority of freshwater restoration work on the island. We were formed in 2010 as a volunteer organization to offer a united voice for our watershed groups. We have grown to an 8-person organization that provides health insurance, savings plans, shared equipment banks, training opportunities, and special project funding, governed by a 9-member volunteer board. Our role is systems integration. It's aligning local data collection, restoration priorities, and funding mechanisms so that discrete community projects produce island-scale environmental outcomes. We operate as the interface between field implementation and provincial and federal policy. So what does that mean exactly? So nature first adaptation implies engineering and planning principles that work with geomorphic and hydraulic processes rather than against them. So we design with the landscape, retaining natural drainage and sediment transport functions. We reduce risk by using biodiversity recovery and restored hydrological storage to reduce flood and erosion risk. We use integrated systems. We're managing upland, freshwater, and coastal zones as single hydrological units. So we look at that means we look at everything within that watershed and how it affects, because everything is truly connected. We treat wetlands, dunes, and riparian forests as infrastructure assets with measurable performance outcomes. Let's see here. Again, I apologize. First time giving this. My slides are a little so how do we support island-wide adaptation? So the Alliance operates on 4 technical pillars: coordination and standards. We're developing shared protocols for data, mapping, and reporting. Funding and delivery. We're administering multi-year federal and provincial programs such as Habitat Stewardship Protection, Nature Smart Climate Solutions Funds, Aquatic Eco Restoration Funds, Forest and Landscape and Priority Place, 2 billion trees, which is we deliver the regional 2 billion trees arm of the federal program. And we've got wonderful funding partners that really support us in the work that we do. And we also, they trust us because we ensure compliance while taking the administrative burden off of our local groups. So what does that mean exactly? Well, we're building science and technical capacity. We're implementing standardization monitoring networks. For example, we monitor our bats on the island. We're going into our 6th year of doing so. So we have acoustic bat grids, and we've been lucky enough to have the same people who are analyzing that bat data. So not only do we have a wonderful data set, we have really consistent, good outcomes from this monitoring program. We've recently, we're in our 3rd year of river otter monitoring projects, and we're also in the final stages of finishing our electrofishing protocols for the entire island. And then that also lends into what we can do for advocacy and policy. So we publish position statements, we speak to the press, and inform legislation on ecological issues as well as policy issues. Following Hurricane Fiona, we coordinated provincial habitat assessments and developed recovery guidance and used those across multiple watersheds. And just wanted to, I should have made these photos bigger, I apologize, but just want to show you some of the things that we're doing across the island. You'll see on your screen a stream table, which actually is portable, and we take it all across the island and we show people what exactly coastal erosion looks like in their own communities and their own river systems. And this is a fun hands-on tool. As you can see, we let the kids get dirty and play it in the stream model so that they truly understand. And basically what we do is we take it out and we set it up really badly, like a really badly uh, planned community, and then we destroy the town, which if you have children or work with children, they love destroying things. It's so awesome. But then we ask them to build the community they want to live in. And it's really neat to see them making smarter decisions, like, you know, putting bridges up higher and putting in larger culverts, and they get that hands-on opportunity to learn. So those are some of the outreach events that we do, and we bring that table with us, which has been a huge, huge boon to our equipment bank. We also, this past year, built a nursery. So we're supporting the 2 Billion Trees team by growing all native species, but we're focusing on some of the less accessible native trees. So we have white cedar, black ash, sugar maple, red oaks, and pin cherry, and a few others that we're working on at the nursery. So to supplement that. So that was a really huge project that we got off the ground this year. The next slide, if you see that, I just took that photo last week. That was, we were able to reconnect a floodplain through our Aquatic Eco Restoration Fund, which is our DFO funding partners, which FYI, that's a 1.5 million 3-year project that we were able to do for them. And in this project, it was the first time ever, we had all 25 groups receive funding to put together a plan for their watersheds. It's not exactly a watershed plan because that involves community engagement. But this plan let them go and gave them the money and the funds and the tools to go through and analyze their system so that they could start thinking, instead of chasing the funding, they could put together a well thought out plan on what work they wanted to have done. So instead of chasing the funding, they could come with projects ready. And we're funding those projects. And one of them is this floodplain reconnection, which doesn't really show you the scope of the project, but for years and years, this is a small community pond called Rackham's Pond, and it was just eroding because they had completely changed the landscape, and just sediment was going in there. So we reconnected the floodplain to get it so that we could stop dredging and let a floodplain function as they're supposed to, which is as the water goes over it, that's where the sediment is supposed to go. This next one, this was funded by the province of PEI, is our River Watcher one. And I think we're the only one right now that has one in Atlantic Canada. It's basically a $100,000 camera that we put into the water. This is, for those of you who know PEI, this is in the West River in Bonshaw. And we're doing a 3-year study, which is less invasive, and we can get a picture of what's coming and going out of our estuaries and get actual estimates or real counts of our fish instead of just estimates, and using less invasive methods. So relying less on electrofishing, and to see what kind of data we'll get from this. And that was the $100,000 project to reconnect a floodplain. Maybe 140,000 at the end of the day. We have a rolling total in our nursery, but this was surprisingly inexpensive because we used all Fiona wood. So we had a local miller cut our planks for us. So that was nice. And that stream table was about $10,000. And you'll forgive me if you don't like hearing the price tags. I love knowing what these things cost. So I think it's an important part of what we do. And I think people should tell everyone what projects cost more often so that they understand um, just what's involved. Let's see here. So our pillars of what we do for restoration. How much was the nursery? It's a rolling total. I would say it's probably right now in the 30-ish thousand dollar range. But yeah, so again, we have a lot of great partners. I'll just go through these photos because I think these pictures are interesting. My top left, the one without the person in it, is a what we've been experimenting with a lot on the island are rock weirs. So the Department of Transportation has set priorities for their culverts, and they if they deem something not a priority because the culvert is still functioning, but there's no fish passage, that kind of it ends up under the watershed group's sort of duty to fix this. So what we do is uh, we basically push the water up to the culvert. And this project was about an $80,000 project to build those rock weirs. A couple of years ago, we partnered with the Aquaculture Alliance after Fiona. And it was a great fund because all the groups just got a blanket $10,000 and we told them just to go out and clean the beaches. And then we tracked it on a Google Earth map. And so they showed us what they collected at the end of each day and they had to send a piece of paper, but that's all they had to do. There was no reporting for them at the end of this project. It was just, they sent us a sheet every day. And I don't remember the exact total, but it was over like 2,000 kilometers or 1,000 kilometers of coastline that we got cleared up. This other project was interesting. This was a joint funded project where there was riprap on the beach, which was illegal because I don't know if you can tell in those two pictures, that's actually rusty rebar. So they had put some old construction riprap on top of the beach to protect the businesses behind it and then covered it with sand. And there's some of you on this call that know that that's not how sand dunes function. You know, they have to move. Sand needs to move. It has to go somewhere. It has to move. And what happened was it did move, but it took Fiona to move it. And so it scattered all this riprap across the beach. And this community wanted us to put it back. And so we had to explain to them how it worked. And we took our time to educate everybody in that community to make sure that they understood why this wasn't a good solution. This was maladaptation. And this was about $207,000 to remove this riprap off the beach. And we tried to find out who put it there in the first place, and we never could uncover that. I think it was there that was put there maybe 20 years ago. So I think those things are interesting to know. But yeah, so we have lots of funds. We have lots of funds. I am saying riprap. People know it as that. I don't know what else you call it. I guess the hard armoring, gray infrastructure. But the projects we've done projects with Lennox Island and Nature Smart Climate Solutions and the DSO to reestablish tidal flow into degraded salt marshes. We're enhancing fish passage, we're storing carbon, and we're buffering for storm surges. And that's our project manager for the 2 Billion Trees Fund, Cassidy, happily planting. I think that's an eastern cedar. So yeah, what we try to do is partner with our communities to make sure that they understand what we're doing. And that seems, and I'll give you an example of when you think it seems so patently obvious that this is a good thing and you don't need to explain to anyone what you're doing. We had some of our watershed groups pulling some invasive grasses off the side of the highway, some Phragmites, for those of you who know. And so they were removing an invasive species, and everybody they kept getting these people stopping on the side of the road yelling at them because they used the beautiful stalks of the Phragmites for their flower arrangements. So that's just like one small example of how when you're doing this work, education is such a crucial component of it. But yeah. Um, Biodiversity is the foundation of resilience. So we're looking at diverse systems are more adaptable. When one function fails, another fills the gap. And I'll give you a couple examples of that. We're still in a drought. It was pretty bad come July, August, September. And I got no less than 7 calls from the press asking what we're doing about the drought. What are the watershed groups doing about the drought? And I explained in one radio interview that, there's nothing we can do about a drought. Um, but, I went on to explain what we do is we put the system in the best possible way, while we can, so that it can handle one of those major stressors. And they didn't air that part of the interview. And then I spoke to somebody from CTV, and they came out and spent 2 hours with us. And I convinced them to do the story on the restoration work we do. And some of our groups will focus on restoration, but some of our groups focus on preservation because their systems are great. And they spent 2 hours with us, and as far as I could tell, that never aired. So I stopped answering the calls of what we're doing about a drought. And I think I boiled it down to people are either that disconnected from nature that they think there is something to do for a drought, or they are so used to man versus nature, manipulating nature and thinking they can control things that it really sets them off, that it really puts people off kilter when they recognize that, these are things that we can't control directly. We can through our climate adaptations, but there's not a lot we can do about a drought. And for anybody who's been to Greenwich, our national park on PEI, I took this picture about 2 weeks ago. This is the floating dock. And that system, I would say, has about half the water it normally does in there. So, that's just a reality of what we're dealing with here on the island right now. We actually just canceled all of our planting plans for this late summer, early fall because of the drought. We just doesn't make sense to plant trees now just for them to go out and die. So, yeah, it's really been affecting us here on the island, but as I'm sure it is in other places as well. And we have priority species that we as the Alliance focuses on. Atlantic salmon is definitely a priority species, and we look at that as an umbrella species. There's a lot of funding attached to Atlantic salmon, so we're able to do a lot of good work that benefits not just salmon, but everything else in that ecosystem. Bats is something we've been especially focused on for the past 6 years. We have 2 endangered bats here that we've been monitoring. In our good news story, we have river otters that just came back to the island, probably about 2016, or we've just discovered them, and we believe they were extirpated for 125 years. So now we run a network of 20 to 27 river otter cameras that we bait with lure across the island to understand their life cycle a little bit better. And some of our groups focus on pollinators. One of our Bedeck Bay environmental management area does a lot of work with monarch butterflies, and unfortunately, they're seeing massive declines in that area. So yeah, how we build this resilient future is that we are looking at integrated nature-based solutions based on all the things that I've told you. We're looking to secure long-term investment, and we're not sure what that means yet. And we're looking at social enterprise. I was on a call recently, and that seems to be where a lot of these nonprofits are looking to provide a service for the community. We're currently building shared data systems for our watershed groups, and now also for our island Atlantic salmon and eventually brook trout populations. And we're not just reacting to change, we're designing for resilience. So when we're doing these estuary projects or larger projects, we're looking at the whole community. One of the unique challenges we have here on Prince Edward Island is that we're 90% privately owned, which is pretty much the opposite of the rest of us. So we try to instill through our community groups just a positive message. We have to work a lot with farmers, and the communication wasn't so great in the past years. Environmental communication is a very difficult um, beast, and we've learned a lot, and I think we come at it in a much better way than we did 15, 20 years ago. And so we support work on private land through our watershed groups and through our partnership. We are part of the Agri Watershed Partnership, which is about getting best management practices on farmland. So some of our groups have built wetlands on farmlands when instead of retiring them, we help them direct their water and make it better so that it stays on their farmland. And we do bioreactors as well, where we've installed bioreactors to keep that affluent that is filled with pesticides and things getting into our estuaries. So we do try to look at the whole picture. We funded upland work and we fund things on the ground. And through our Aquatic Eco Restoration Fund, as far as I know, this is the first time that the DFO has, at least on PEI, has funded upland work, really understanding our unique situation where we have to look at the whole system. So that's what we've been doing. And I love ending. This past summer, I had the opportunity to co-chair the Coastal Zone Canada National Conference with Stephanie Arnold, who's with Climate Atlantic. And our keynote speaker was A.R. Siders. And when they presented this slide to the room, it was kind of shocked silence in the room. And I think it's very powerful. And I highly recommend that you read her paper. I can make it available to you. But it says the most effective driver of change is not creating new policies, but fully enforcing existing ones without exceptions, exemptions, or loopholes. We're currently seeing that with our wetland policy on Prince Edward Island, where because of our exceptions, exemptions, and loopholes, we're actually losing our wetland policy. But the policy is actually really good if you read it. It's all of these exemptions. Yeah, I just think this is a really important message for people in your own community to take that home with you. That's where a lot of the work is. And oops, I thought I had another slide, but I don't. So I guess I guess that is it.
Thank you so much, Heather. That was wonderful to see all of the work that's going on around PEI. Very inspirational. Thank you also for sharing those photos of people doing field work. There was a comment in the chat that someone really loved that. It's always great to see the boots on the ground work and kind of inspires people to get out there themselves and see how they can participate.